legal defense.
Right, it's very intense questioning of Stormy Daniels by Susan Neckles, one of the defense lawyers for Donald Trump. Throughout the morning, there were a lot of moments where the defense team tried to point out Stormy Daniels may have changed her story a little bit from what the story she was telling in 2018 when this first came out to what she's testifying under oath about Donald Trump. So they're digging into all of these little tiny things, lengths of time that Stormy Daniels has talked about. If they ate dinner the night of this alleged sexual encounter with Donald Trump, one of those exchanges is about an article published in 2018 telling Stormy Daniels' story about this sexual encounter. And Susan Neckles says, okay, you claim that that's in the article, in the cold article. And Stormy Daniels says, I don't know what's in the cold article, but my story hasn't changed. The defense lawyer, you didn't say that then, did you? Stormy Daniels, I don't know. Susan Neckles, and in 20, your story has changed, hasn't it? Stormy Daniels says, no, not at all. You're trying to make me say that it's changed, but it hasn't changed. Just a flavor of what this is like in the courtroom and what the jury has to think about as they're determining whether Stormy Daniels is credible.
Good point. Let me follow up with Ian Henderson. Do you think the Trump cross-examination of Stormy Daniels today benefited the defense?
No, I don't think it benefited the defense. I think it probably benefited Trump, right? I mean, I think he came in today with all those that they wanted to keep on the stand.
because it was the opening concert in New York, and there were all kinds of celebrities, very, very famous people coming up to be seated. And that when you were seated, you got the loudest applause. People stood up and roared and cheered when you walked in. Why is that? What is this fascination?
I don't know, maybe I should be a rock star.
They thought you were going to moonwalk.
He was great, I have to say. No, I did get I don't know why. I really don't know why. I wish I could pinpoint it. I wish I could really tell you why. But I think I've done a good job in New York, and I've done a charitable job in a sense. And Trump Tower has become such a success. And it's as you and I were discussing, it's become the #1 attraction in New York, Trump Tower. And I think people recognize it. New York people are really proud of it. And people,
so you sort of become like a folk hero. I mean, people, there's somebody in this audience I was reading, the audience, some man who's a businessman, you can tell me who you are later, who went to New York and just wanted to stand by your building hoping some of the luck would run off. Is that true? Is he in this audience? Yeah. And so how do you explain that? Or is there an explanation?
You know, I believe that you make your own luck to a large extent. The word luck is a very important word. Very important. There's no more important word than luck, but you can help create or help make your own luck. I walk down the street a lot of times, and people will touch me and they'll grab for me, and I used to do it selfish because I'm a private guy. I say, gee, that's horrible. You know, somebody punches you in the arm a little bit, and you know, you're just walking down the street, and then ultimately, I became in a sense honored by that because people are really looking for something. Unfortunately, I don't think that has any effect. I don't think it works. I think you have to go out and really work hard and do well, and you have to have the ability to do it.
You took out a full-page ad in major U.S. newspapers last year criticizing U.S. foreign policy. What would you do differently, Don?
I'd make our allies, forgetting about the enemies you can't talk to so easily, I'd make our allies pay their fair share. We're a debtor nation. Something's going to happen over the next number of years with this country because you can't keep going on losing $200 billion, and yet we let Japan come in and dump everything right into our markets and everything. It's not so true. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of them, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings.
The idea was, can we replace some of these analog stages, and in particular the demodulation? Can we actually go in and change the mode of the radio? So say, you've got a military radio and you've got to talk to 3 different types of platforms, and you can have one platform that you just tell it what to do and it's going to make it. This idea really was reinvented by Joseph McCullough. And Joseph's down at Virginia Tech right now, and actually I had the pleasure of hosting him for the Dept at one point, and we started talking a lot about these systems. But that was a rebirth of this idea. There was a lot of this going on in the DoD and the classified world, and actually the scientific world had a tremendous amount of digital, analog, hybrid combination systems where there was real-time signal processing going on. And Joe came along and kind of redefined all this and said, look, this is software radio and you can do this. And, I can't even see my eyes cut down here. This is Moore's Law. This is early computers. This is where we are now, and this is the future of, quantum computing and DNA computing. Anything you want to do for computing, all right? You do the software radio with computing. And, this is actually an important thing. In software, you can have software-defined capabilities and modes. You can have software-realized instrumentation. You can have software radio that realize the signal processing for the entire radio on a chip. You can have multiple software radios that you bring together for joint processing, and you realize instrumentation from the composite of those radios. So the ensemble of radios comes to the end of the copper as well. Now, the real term software-defined radio showed up in 1995 with Stephen Barr.
I have here
about the time I started doing stuff with software radio.
As you can see, it has some insoluble contaminants, so the first thing you need to do is filter it out. At this point, I must stress that you should have any precious metals like silver and solution alongside the copper.
At a very fundamental level. And we're able to build systems that this is all in one mode. You never want to touch it, you want to calibrate it. And then
loaning more money. He has a Zinc great deal of control over the defense line. And sometimes the argument is asked to produce more money or sell it. Assets like FuseSchool, the Plaza Hotel, Mārcis' second year under Trump's ownership, is still struggling out of debt. Above all, literally, that of confidence Donald Trump. From his 26th floor office in nearby Trump Tower, he was reassessing his options. Trump's office wall is decorated with magazine covers of happier times, but there are none in this wall from the past several months, and Trump has recently been reluctant to see reporters. But as his new book reached the stores today's publication day, he agreed to talk with me. For it's particularly important to him these days for this book to be a success. Well, the new book is surviving at the top. There are many people who would say failed at the top.
Allows me to browse.
Well, I think what the press has done is taken a situation where they see something and blown it to kingdom come. I've never seen anything like that. Whether it's a marriage, by the way, or whether it's financial, I've never seen press reporting as I have with regard to me. And I hope the general public understands how inherently dishonest the press in this country is.
As a member of the press, let me try to clear up some of the things that you say on Twitter. You write in the book, my bankers and I worked out a terrific deal that allows me to come out stronger than ever. I see the deal as a great victory, but eventually the rest of the world will too. Being on the verge of bankruptcy, being bailed out by the bank, skating on thin ice and almost drowning, that's a businessman to be admired.
You say on the verge of bankruptcy, Barbara, and you talk on the verge, and you listen to what people say.
I talk to your bank.
Well, that's fine. And what do they say? I mean, depending on which bank you're talking to, what do they say? The deal I worked out is in the process. The deal I worked out is something that I think is good for everybody. The economy is down the tubes. Nobody knows how bad the economy is. I listen to the people on Wall Street talking about the possibility of a recession. We're not in a recession. We're in a depression. Now, when you're in a depression, you have to sort of go with punches. You have to go through your banks. You have to deal with people. You have to work things out. And there are a lot of people. Unfortunately, I'm the only one people write about. I mean, they don't write about other people.
You have a little more debt than most people. Just something like $3 billion in debt.
I also have a little more assets than most people. It's a sort of an interesting phenomenon. I have many friends. They are negotiating with their banks the same as I am. And I always say to them, how come you never get any publicity? You don't end up on the front page of the various...
It probably wouldn't last 266,000 miles again, but even if it got me down the road for a few months or even a couple of years, I'd be fine with that. But very seldom with the left fire so bad. Most of the time, even the bears is very seldom so bad nowadays. If it's still spin-free and you don't hear any kind of bearing, grinding or anything, the bearings are probably fine. And the thing that we need to look at is the regulated depth number. It's kind of truly different right here. That is the most, I swear, 90% of the time, this ends up being the problem right here. So, and again, there's a good news. You're going to have, so, if you notice this hole right here, and you push these brushes in all the way, or at least.
Okay, chapter 31. Wave thinking. So this is the last chapter of the analog circuit section. And after this, we're going to be getting into digital, and I'll give you an introduction to digital when we get to 32. So this is our last analog circuit chapter. And actually, some of this content is going to be a review as you've been exposed to some of this material already. Wave shaping circuits. After completing this chapter, you're going to be able to identify ways in which waveform shapes can be changed. Explain the frequency filtering concept, waveform structure. Define liquid, cycle, dry, and time. Undershoot, overshoot, and reach as they relate to the waveform. Explain how differentiators and integrators work. Describe flipper and clamper circuits. We will not, however, discuss the classes. That's something different. Describe the differences between monostable
and the strip mall and the echoes of their encounter. The legacy of Logic serendipitous discovery lived on. The green sky, perpetually raining hot dogs and waffle burgers, carried the tale through Materialia, a realm frozen in time, where the value of unity and diversity, guided by the wisdom of the wise owl, became a timeless lesson for generations to come.
And they had a lot of problems. This is actually one of the things that OJ was accused of doing.
Inspired by Roger continued his work, realizing that
someday I'll say the story of someone else.
Australia has the highest priced cigarettes in the world. Since 2013, tobacco excise has increased 12.5% each year. Last year alone, the tax office collected just under $9 billion from cigarettes. I think this could contribute to an increase in tax. There's tax on tobacco, just $500 per cigarette, and then we add GST on top of that. Quite one for not paying that when you import those things. I think organised crime has identified it as an area that can make a lot of money. We take it very seriously as an organisation. In 2015, the federal government set up the tobacco strike team. The announcement followed Australia's largest tobacco seizure, raised on shipments from Indonesia to Sydney, netted 70 tonnes of tobacco, worth $40 million.
Not to be confused with
all cargo coming into the country through unrestricted. We're able to X-ray up to 80 seated containers. So the examiners will compare what's been declared with the unit, and they'll make an assessment as to whether or not what they're seeing is a true reflection of what's been reported. So the trend at the moment is that we're getting a lot more consignment through, but smaller quantities of tobacco and cigarettes. This particular consignment was declared as ceramic cup. Once you see, we put it through the cabinet X-ray, pretty transparent, it's pretty open, it's obviously not cup. There's the tobacco there.
Last time you checked out that 400 tonne cargo. A lot of those fruit tobacco comes from Asia, a lot of the rolled off bread comes from in the 20s, you see the house and 11 tonnes, and it's one container out.
We call it rectangular waveform. But if it's that 50%, we call it square wave. Circuit. Again, it's going to be a chapter that I do not utilize the slides. And I am going to show you simplifying slides. Now, frequency
we are 264 grams. Okay?
So
we might subtract 139 grams from that.
Control. Time to record positive Alt P. Alt.
I'm rounding a little bit. Because this thing doesn't go, straight as accuracy as my other one does. So we have 125 grams of acid. So we divide that by 100, we're at 1.25 grams.
Circuits and show you an approved method that I want you to utilize. In following the text is going to show you kernel mapping and deep diagram.
1.25. Oh, right about 35%. Exactly what
We also think that all of this is a joke. and chemical extraction and concentration methods. Each step serves to separate, concentrate, or transform state. In essence, the precious metals, like building blocks, are transformed in steps by connecting with other building blocks and then taking them apart until the resulting products are pure precious metals. Our previous videos presented concentration and refining steps used in mineral processing. The hydrometallurgical videos presented processing techniques that require wet chemistry approaches to separate the precious metals from the surrounding materials versus pyrometallurgy, which requires heating and smelting operations to perform the separation.
These processes are used in different sequences depending on the feed material, primary or ore versus secondary scrap.
Pyrometallurgy involves melting or other thermal treatments to concentrate or extract metals. There are various pyrometallurgy processes ranging from simple burning off of volatiles to complex chemical reactions that can only take place in molten metal or molten salt form. Precious metals each melt at different temperatures with extremely high melting temperatures among the platinum group metals. In some cases, high-temperature furnaces using advanced technologies such as plasma and induction melting are required. Here are examples of pyrometallurgical processes used in precious metals recycling and refining. Calcination is the thermal decomposition process used to remove volatiles or simply burn off materials.
For example, photographic film and paper are refined for their silver content by first calcining to produce ashes, which are removed in subsequent processes. Electronic components are also calcined to concentrate the metal components.
Certain catalysts and other platinum group metal scrap are also calcined to concentrate the metal components. Roasting or oxidation roasting differs from calcination in that there is a reaction with the metal-bearing components. For example, sulfur-containing minerals are roasted in air to transform the metal sulfide into metal oxide, which can be easily dissolved and extracted by leaching. The resulting desulfurized material is called a matte, which can be then crushed and ground prior to leaching out the oxidized base metals to leave a residue rich in precious metals. Nickel and copper sulfide ore containing platinum is an example where the process is used. A copper-nickel matte rich with platinum group metals is produced by roasting. The nickel and copper are then leached from the matte, leaving a high-grade precious metals residue.
The more complex remaining pyrometallurgical processes will be reviewed in our next video.
The International Precious Metals Institute promotes the education and advancement of precious metals technology and business. IPMI is an international association of companies committed to providing technical resources and educational materials, including a series of videos presenting examples of precious metal applications and a variety of interesting and rewarding career opportunities. This video is examples of careers in precious metals using chemistry, chemical engineering, metallurgical engineering,
and oxidation roasting.
Reactive gas refining.
And your Honor, this is a 75 precision structure activator
an alloy
with one subpart. I believe it's something by way of situation.
Any objections to 75 and 75A being admitted? All right, 75A and 75 are each admitted.
The judge, are you familiar with these records?
I am.
Did you obtain those through warrant or subpoena?
I did.
Do you provide those documents to Mike Douglas of the FBI?
I did.
Effectively, is it fair to say that you reviewed Alex Fox's financial information, specifically the Desert Financial?
Yes.
Did you prepare and launch for the chart to show a timeline of the financial records and spending?
Yes.
Did you do that in anticipation of testimony today?
Yes, yes.
Would you look at Exhibit 86? Is this the chart you've been preparing? You spoke of preparing.
Yes, yes.
Did you do that to aid the jury in understanding the timeline of some about thinking and events in this case?
Yes, yes.
And is that document an accurate representation of what you created?
Yes, yes.
Your Honor, for demonstrative purposes, the state is asked to consider that 86 be entered into evidence.
No objection.
No, State Exhibit 86 is entered.
And then
You may.
voltage current to average power. Power factor, the ratio of true power in watts to apparent power in volt amps. True power is measured in watts because true power is the only power that's actually being consumed in the purely resistive element of the circuit. Is the reactive element of the circuit consuming any power? No. Okay. Now, remember how this chapter is titled Resonance? We haven't even talked about resonance yet. Now we're going to talk about resonance. Resonance, a resonant device produces a broadening and dampening effect. Resonant circuits pass desired frequencies and reject others. An example would be a television tuning circuit. An example of resonance is plucking a guitar string. When you pluck a guitar string, it vibrates at a unique frequency. It is resonating. If you get a piece of china and you ding ding the china, the frequency it resonates at, ironically, is called its resonant frequency. The biggest example of a man-made device resonating took place here in Washington State. An Airo fridge. The wind blew across the original Airo fridge, where I think on version number 3.0 right now. The original Tacoma Airo fridge, the wind was blowing and it began to resonate at its unique frequency, which meant basically it would break itself apart. That was mechanical resonance. In electronics, resonance is when, take notes on this, in electronic resonance is when X sub L equals X sub C in a circuit. You go to New York, and the utility company is Consolidated Edison, Con Ed. You know, I mean, got to start from a guy named Edison. He was in heavy debate with a guy, Nikola Tesla. And Nikola Tesla was the father of alternating current. And Edison wanted DC distribution. Tesla wanted AC distribution. Who won? Tesla. Edison was wrong. But yet, again, growing up, I knew the name Edison. I didn't know the name Tesla. Why is that? Why is that? I'm not a historian, but why is that? Actually, Tesla, well, truth be told, a lot of people think maybe he was not of this world. Okay, because this guy had some brilliant ideas. Edison died, and they, opened up a memorial and museums and everything else. Tesla died. The FBI came in and confiscated all of his materials. And you want to know what's going on behind the walls at Area 51, behind the fences at Area 51? Probably some of Tesla's work. I mean, he was out there. The dude really was out there. Brilliant. Whether or not he was not of this earth, well, who knows. But anyway, the world adopted his electrical distribution system. Tesla said AC is the way to go. No. I don't know what his citizenship status. I believe he was an immigrant. And he came here for a better life.
One last thing that I want to point out is it's not in your book.
We got this.
You see, we got binary decimal, hexadecimal. There's another one in here called octal. Octal used to be like mine. The first computer.
What do you deal with we have a rotating armature. That rotating armature maintains connection through 360-degree rotation through these split springs. That means we harness the entire alternation of the armature through the magnetic field. So we need that 360-degree waveform on it. And this is basically as we rotate this armature through, we create the positive information and then the negative information. And then we repeat the cycle.
Okay, this next chapter here, chapter 34, simplifying logic circuits. Again, this is going to be a chapter that I do not utilize the slides, and I am going to show you a technique on simplifying logic circuits.
With nuclear, with coal, with diesel.
I should have been recording that.
Chapter 34, Simplifying Logic Circuits. I am not going to use slides for this chapter, although I am going to show you how to simplify logic circuits and show you.
As Robert continues his work, the community marvels at the evolving philosophy behind his craft. His cylindrical block became more than just protective layers, taking embodied diversity, a testament to the profound lessons imparted by the wise Zhao. The legend of Robert and the coding period reach far and wide.
Or digital or an approved combination of analog and digital circuits together. But the main thing that I want to show you here is going to show you today and the different logic circuits that are available and how we can simplify them. Now, simplify. Up here in the upper left corner, you see we have label TTL, and we have label CMOS. TTL stands for transistor. On all of our computers here, we have a site license for Multisim 9. That's like what's on my machine right here. So go ahead and launch that from the computer. How many of you in here are familiar with Multisim, have done some playing around with Multisim? So TTL is all kind of replaced in industry right now. As a matter of fact, like our parts kit, we're having a hard time even sourcing parts in TTL because they're becoming quite rare. But anyway, we have the choice of both right in here. So what's that? NOR gate. NAND gate. Component. And there's my component on my workspace. Now, the big device that I want to show you, what this is all about, is located over here on the right. Is this logic converter.
very strong from the electric force, so these cogs like fluorine and chlorine are able to rip it away. So you see, on the left side of the table, you have outermost electrons that are not really tightly held on by the electric force. We're going to talk about why later. But these atoms have outer electrons that are not held very tightly by the electric force. And these elements over here, they want to attract, and they do attract electrons so readily because their situation is opposite, and they are able to attract electrons with overwhelming force. So what happens is it just sucks the electron from this side, and it goes into this side, and that's why sodium, chlorine react together. Because the chlorine really wants to grab an electron and has a very strong electric force to do so, but sodium has an outer electron that's not very tightly bound, so what happens is chlorine just sucks sodium electrons over there and then satisfies both parties. And then they bond together and they become table salt. What I'm telling you here about predicting if you're going to gain an electron or lose an electron is one of the most important things the periodic table is for. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's probably the most used thing on the table, except for the atomic mass. We use that a lot too. Mostly when you're looking at the table, you're trying to figure out how many electrons something's trying to gain or lose, because that's going to help you predict what's going to happen in the chemistry. And by knowing the column it's in, which we call group, by the way, what group it's in, you can predict what's going to happen because you'll know how many electrons it's going to gain or lose. So in summary, on the right-hand side of the table, these elements in general are trying to gain an electron. They are called non-metal. Right? And they gain electrons to become more negative, and they become and look like the outer electron configuration of the noble gas. These elements over here, they try to lose electrons, and they try to lose as much electrons to also be like its nearest noble gas. So because half of the table is trying to gain electrons, and the other half of the table is trying to lose electrons, they can party all day long. Because one element is readily able to give up an electron, the other element is readily able to take an electron, and then they're going to party because they are mass-made heavy, okay? So we're going to talk a lot more about that, but that is the basic idea. The elements in the center, they're also metal. They generally do like to give up electrons as well, just like these. But they're not quite as reactive, and the rules associated with these middle elements are not as cookie cutter, okay? The elements on the edges of the table we can predict with great certainty.
They offer high inductance for a small size. These are very prolific in a lot of contemporary electronic applications because the magnetic field that's contained in the core offers a very high inductance for a very small size. If you opened up a computer power supply, you'd find a bunch of these inside. A lot of inductance for a relatively small package. I've had graduates who have gone to work for companies and they had to do this as part of their job, roll their own. They're given a blank core, spool of wire, and you sit there and you thread it through and tighten it up, thread it through, tighten it up, clean the leads, solder it in the boards. Actually, pretty good job. Most of the people that are playing around with this stuff are for RF applications, radio frequency, high energy radio frequency. Instagram, what's going on, man? Got a question? You just back there waving, man. It's like, what's up?
Magnetic field contains core basically the significance of that is going to stop going to the inductance we're not going to stray into things around it, right? It's just going to be contained in the core. So like a normal transformer is going to have a field around it.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's not wasting that field going outside, it's containing it basically. Increases efficiency, which makes it more better. This is a shielded core. Shielded core. Have a shield of magnetic material to protect them from the influence of other magnetic fields. Because if you've got a couple of these in close proximity to each other, one field could influence another device. Now, if you just saw this, if you didn't know any better, what would you think this device was? Now, let's take a transformer. And the only tell that there is on this is there's only two wires. If you look on the other side, you wouldn't find any other wires. But it would look exactly like a transformer. As a matter of fact, you can use a transformer as an inductor. If you don't connect the secondary leads and the primary, if you only use just the coil, you can use the transformer as an inductor. for some applications. That's why I've got a garage full of junk, because I won't throw a transformer away. Someday I may want to use it as an inductor. This is laminated core. And again, if you didn't know any better, you'd think it was a transformer.
So what's behind this recent
We don't
surge in value?
there's only two
It's
wires
simple.
coming out.
Revenues and profits have skyrocketed lately. In 2019, the last year before the pandemic, Zhao brought in less than $10 million in profits on about $77 million in revenue for Forbes estimate. But now, estimated profits have nearly doubled to $18 million, and estimated revenues exceed $100 million, based on an analysis of disclosures from files of candidates for president. The club shared research journalist Michael says that there are, quote, long-lasting secular tailwinds for consumer experiences and shopping. This is thanks in part to the post-pandemic trend of hybrid work from within longer weekends. Belisario adds, quote, that's a winning recipe for resorts' value and performance. This is especially true for golf resorts. Peter Nanoula, an investor focused on golf clubs, tells Forbes, quote, it's the best 3 years in the history of the golf industry. Post-pandemic demand has been helped by more flexible work options. Nanoula says, quote, more ability for people to spend time away from the office. He also says that supply is continuing to shrink after a 2-decade glut of too many courses. Nanoula adds, quote, for a golf course or a golf club owner, that's a good thing. Zhao, which boasts 4 courses, was well positioned to take advantage of such a boom. Golf represented a quarter of the resort's revenues in 2022, according to documents released during Trump's fraud trial, and a similar share for the parts of 2023 for which data is available. Before 2022, golf wasn't broken out as its own category on the documents. The Live Golf Tournament on the club's notoriously difficult so-called Blue Monster course has helped too. Zhao's South Florida Raquel may also have something to do with its increase in value. Jeff Wilson, vice chairman of CBRE's Golf and Resorts outfit, says, quote, it's the old real estate axiom, right? Location, location, location. There's probably not a hotter place. For full coverage, check out Kyle Mullen's piece on Forbes.com. This is Kieran Meadows from Forbes. Thanks for tuning in.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to make this a nicer gas with a highly corrosive acid known for its ability to yield copper from other acids. Besides, this is something called sulfuric acid and potassium nitrate. I'll elaborate further on the chemical reaction to conclude. Let's see what happens. In this reaction, we're going to use distillation to separate the byproducts of water.
having an unintended side effect.
I'm Leanne Cook. I live in Tasmania. I'm a mum and grandmother. Been smoking for about 25 months. I think I started smoking black market tobacco 2.5, 3 years ago. I was approached in a pub, I was interested, and of course I was given the title. Yes, it's called shop. It's very unprocessed. It's just dried, shriveled up leaves in a plastic bag. It doesn't taste particularly nice a lot of the time. You do get used to it, but you put up with what you do, I suppose. I don't know who I'm doing it a lot of the time, but the price is so much cheaper. And you do find a lot of the time they also deal in other stuff.
Tasmania has the second highest smoking rate in the country after the Northern Territory.
We have hit this dead spot now with 1 in 5 Tasmanians in the adult population smoking and as high as 33% of young people smoking.
The Tasmanian government is currently looking at proposals to raise the legal smoking age from 18 to as high as 25.
We know nearly 100% of people pick up tobacco before the age of 25 and become addicted. Tobacco is a killer, and it's killing Tasmanians at higher rates than the rest of Australia.
Oh, and many states are putting it really nicely. We're being bullied.
Smoking rates are close to 40%.
These new windmills are 40 cents. That's about the price you should be paying for a good smoke.
Today, it's less than 13%.
Today, it's really the poster child of preventive medicine. No country in the world has got smoking down as far as we have.
But some are now questioning whether Australia's tobacco controls are having an unintended side effect.
I'm Leanne Cook. I live in Tasmania. I'm a mum and grandmother. Been smoking for about 25 months. I think I started smoking black market tobacco 2.5, 3 years ago. I was approached in a pub, I was interested, and of course I was given the title. Yes, it's called shop. It's very unprocessed. Just sort of dried, shriveled up leaves in a plastic bag. It doesn't taste particularly nice a lot of the time. You do get used to it, but you put up with what you do, I suppose. I don't know who I'm dealing with a lot of the time, but the price is so much cheaper, and you do find a lot of the time they also deal in other stuff.
Tasmania has the second highest smoking rate in the country after the Northern Territory.
We have hit this dead spot now with 1 in 5 Tasmanians in the adult population smoking and as high as 33% of young people smoking.
The Tasmanian government is currently looking at proposals to raise the legal smoking age from 18 to as high as 25.
We know nearly 100% of people pick up tobacco before the age of 25 and become addicted. Tobacco is a killer, and it's killing Tasmanians at higher rates than the rest of Australia.
Oh, and many states are putting it really nicely. We're being bullied.
Smoking rates are close to 40%.
These new windmills are 40 cents. That's about the price you should be paying for a good smoke.
Today, it's less than 13%.
Today, it's really the poster child of preventive medicine. No country in the world has got smoking down as far as we have.
But some are now questioning whether Australia's tobacco controls are having an unintended side effect.
I'm Leanne Cook. I live in Tasmania. I'm a mum and grandmother. Been smoking for about 25 months. I think I started smoking black market tobacco 2.5, 3 years ago. I was approached in a pub, I was interested, and of course I was given the title. Yes, it's called shop. It's very unprocessed. Just sort of dried, shriveled up leaves in a plastic bag. It doesn't taste particularly nice a lot of the time. You do get used to it, but you put up with what you do, I suppose. I don't know who I'm dealing with a lot of the time, but the price is so much cheaper, and you do find a lot of the time they also deal in other stuff.
Tasmania has the second highest smoking rate in the country after the Northern Territory.
We have hit this dead spot now with 1 in 5 Tasmanians in the adult population smoking
and as high as 33% of young people smoking.
The Tasmanian government is currently looking at proposals to raise the legal smoking age from 18 to as high as 25.
We know nearly 100% of people pick up tobacco before the age of 25 and become addicted. Tobacco is a killer, and it's killing Tasmanians at higher rates than the rest of Australia.
Oh, and many states putting it really nicely. We're being bullied.
business in the city. Well, I don't think that New York is that much different from other places. What I do think is that there's a greater energy in New York. There's a greater verve or a greater drive maybe in New York than most other places, and really than any other place I've seen. But I don't think that business itself is much different in New York than it would be anywhere else.
Greed, corruption. I mean, you say it's a throwaway lesson, but greed is good.
Well, I don't think greed is good, and as you know, they did the famous film with Michael Douglas, Wall Street, where greed is good. But that is not the case. I mean, I think greed is bad. I think that you have to enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy what you're doing, it will be successful, generally. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, it's almost never going to be successful.
Rich men always target. The richer you get, I suppose, the bigger the target that you present to people. How much does that worry you?
Well, I think that rich men, I guess, are always targets. Rich people are always targets. And I think that there's a level of celebrity that I've attained, which has become so ridiculous now that it makes me an even bigger target. So it always bothers me, but there's really not much I can do about it. I mean, ridiculous in what way? Celebrity level. Well, it's just become very tough to go out. It's very tough to do things. It's very tough to just even go to a restaurant in a sense, because it's always shaking hands and signing autographs and things. And, you know, it didn't used to be that way. It's not a simple success. It is, but it's not necessarily a good symbol. It's really, it causes lots of problems. I mean, you go out and you want to have dinner at a restaurant with a group of people, and it ends up being a big event, and you have people waiting at the entrance of the. It's just a very tough way to lead a life, I find.
You talk in your book about getting even, the importance of getting even. Is revenge sweet?
I believe strongly in getting even. If somebody has hurt you, if somebody's gone out of their way to hurt you, I think that if you have the opportunity, you should certainly go out of your way to do a number of them. And I've had more criticism about that one statement in my book than any other statement. The clergy is called, the ministers, the priests, the rabbis, they've all said, what a terrible thing to say. That's against our teaching. I believe in an eye for an eye.
If you did so, the other teachers, the clergy, if you do be suggesting to you, what would that do to your reputation in business circles here in New York?
Well, I don't know what it would do to my reputation. I just don't believe instinctively in turning the other cheek. If somebody was out to hurt you, if somebody was out to do a number on you, I really believe that you should just do a number on them if you get the chance.
Can you give me an example?
Well, there were people that I really helped in business when
gigahertz, and it's $15. So we've seen a change in absolute terms in the complexity and cost of these systems, and that change is in many ways just getting rolling. It's been an ongoing process. There have been a number of steps in the complexity and the cost of the radios and in their performance they offer. And it's been coupled one-to-one recently with the development of computing. And, people always say, I have a colleague who always says, it's $15, Frank. And I go, yeah, plus the $1,000 computer you're hooking into. So it's really $1,015 or a few $115, maybe using Raspberry Pi. Maybe you can get it down under $100. But we are headed for the era where you have the $1 software radio. Analog radio receivers are really, their evolution, as I said, went from low frequencies to now all the way up to terahertz. And they go from spark gaps to tubes to transistors to integrated circuits and now nano devices, quantum lasers of various kinds, integrated lasers that you might etch out in the lab to get you into terahertz. And there's all kinds of interesting things that have been opened up by this progression, which took us from, VLF, very long wavelengths, into HF, which that brought about transatlantic propagation and communication and a revolution in things, like it could have a shift, and if it was in trouble, it could send out a distress signal with Morse code. And then, gradually we moved up. There was kind of, at World War II, a shift up above HF and into UHF and L-band, and then very quickly to X-band. And more recently, we've seen a shift to higher frequencies like W-band, which we have a radar at Aide Ac that operates there. And you saw receivers fundamentally transform, and a lot of the transformation was about achieving frequency selectivity.
Blockchain technology can play a pivotal role in the secure and transparent handling of this data, ensuring privacy and integrity.
Both because that's how we decided
potential income and contribution to humanity's future.
And it does it in terms of frequency. And in terms of spatial location.
The integration of blockchain and cryptocurrency opens up new revenue streams to the online cloud, from transaction fees paid through decentralized payments to potential income from content shared on platforms like FTMIP. Moreover, this model can contribute significantly to humanity's future.
More than the defendant ever have to produce any evidence at all. atom or an element. So if you don't know what those words mean, then go back to my previous lessons because we discussed it in great detail. Basically, in the nucleus, we have protons and we have neutrons. So what makes an element different from its neighbor is the number of protons in the nucleus. Right? So this is hydrogen has one proton in its nucleus, and helium has two protons in its nucleus. Lithium has three protons in its nucleus, and beryllium has four protons in its nucleus. But in the nucleus, in addition to the protons, we also have neutrons. And that's where things get a little fuzzy because the element is defined by the number of protons you have, but the nucleus can have a varying number of neutrons, which makes it either heavier or lighter, and those we call isotopes. So we may have different isotopes of oxygen, we may have different isotopes of carbon, but they're all chemically the same element. It's just they may have more or less neutrons in the nucleus, and that is what gives rise to different weight of those isotopes. And they exist in different percentages in nature. There's always a most stable common isotope. So this average atomic mass is taking the average of all the different flavors of the isotope. So for instance, nitrogen, or let's look at carbon, has an average atomic mass of 12.01 atomic mass unit. This is the weighted average of all the different flavors, which we call isotopes of carbon that exist in nature. We have a very common, stable isotope of carbon that we have all around us, and then we have some others that are not so common. So when we mathematically average all of the common ones with the uncommon ones, which all have different masses, we get an average mass. And that average mass is what is printed everywhere on this table. So every number, for instance, zinc here has a mass of 65.39 atomic mass units. But this number is the weighted average of the different isotopes that exist in nature for that element. And every element is like this, okay? Because every element, with very few exceptions, I believe, we always have different amounts of isotopes, which can be different numbers of neutrons in the nucleus. So the big thing to understand is this thing is arranged in increasing atomic number. If you have an element with only one proton, we call it hydrogen. If you add a proton to it, then you get something called helium. Now remember, every one of these elements are neutral atoms. So you have to have, for a neutral atom, the same number of electrons on the outside, orbiting around, or in the electron cloud around the nucleus. You have the same number of electrons as you have protons in the nucleus in order for you to have a neutral atom. So without writing it all out, you know that nitrogen, for instance, has 7 protons in the nucleus, and it must have 7 electrons surrounding the nucleus. You know that chlorine has 17 protons in its nucleus, and it must therefore have 17 electrons around this nucleus, and the same thing, you have, niobium, for instance. Niobium has 41 protons in the nucleus, and it must therefore have 41 electrons surrounding the nucleus to have an electrically neutral atom. And then each of these also have varying numbers of neutrons, and so all of that goes into the calculation of the mass. So the thing to remember, though, is as you add protons to the element, it becomes a new element. So if I start with hydrogen, if I could magically add a proton in the nucleus, then it would make helium. In fact, when you fuse hydrogen together in a nuclear reactor, then you can make helium. If you take helium and
Measured out around
It's a hot water vapor and these are small reactions with steam. Whereas magnesium to iron are more reactive than tin and lead, because they have very slow reactions with water. Tin and lead do not react with water, they only have small reactions with steam. Copper, silver and gold have no reactions with water. Copper pipes, therefore, are very useful at transferring water from one place to another. And gold and silver are very useful as jewellery because they do not react with water when someone has a shower or does the washing. It's question time. Attempt these questions to get your understanding.
Hydrate the monohydrate takes the most effort, and you need to heat the solid up to 220 degrees Celsius. At this temperature, the teal monohydrate completely dehydrates and forms the colorless anhydrous copper sulfate. The anhydrous copper sulfate is quite air sensitive and will slowly convert to monohydrate when left on air. Now let's see what happens when we add water to the anhydrous copper sulfate. Immediately, the blue color returns to the compound as it is rehydrated. Also, the water starts to boil due to the large amount of energy being released by this hydration process. For copper chloride, I will do a demonstration with the remainder of the anhydrous sulfate reaction cycle. As I add water, you see the blue color of hexagon copper steel ions. The company went public via a SPAC merger on March 26th. That day, the ex-president leave a like to subscribe to this video, and as always, thanks for watching. Worth had previously estimated his net worth. Now, as of last Friday, he's worth about $4.4 billion. That's an average drop of $118 million every day, not to mention the $540 million But, after all, some can find comfort in his old empire. Still worth just under $2 billion. Some of his assets are down over the past year, but some are up, and Doral is doing better than any other piece of property.
kind of a lid we've got here. I've never seen one of these before.
So that Morse code wasn't first. There were other methods before Morse code, and one of which involved just 9 digits and a 0. No letters at all. Samuel Morse, though, happened to be at the right place at the right time during the burgeoning telegraphy era, and it stuck. His method stuck. Not because it's good, not because it's great, but because it existed and Morse published in the right place at the right time. Knew the right people. There were other methods. There were other telegraphy methods. Because Morse code is really hard to learn, it's stuck because you put a lot of effort, there's a lot invested in it. So they used it in the military, and if you learned it in the military, you spent days and weeks living, eating, sleeping, breathing Morse. You'll get good at it in a situation like that. Doesn't mean it was easy, doesn't mean it couldn't have been easier, but it is what it is. The professionals
reports that there could be an imminent Israeli military offensive ground assault on Rafah. We've had those evacuation orders dropped by flyers on Palestinian civilians, telling them to get out of eastern Rafah ahead of what could be an imminent Israeli assault. Do you think that could be connected to what Hamas now have agreed to?
Still exists. It's the Navy's
well, personally, I think hardliners and others in the military area in the Israeli establishment will be saying, you see, military pressure works. The threat of military action made them capitulate. I'm not sure that's how Hamas would see it. Yesterday, they fired a little rocket with a Kerosene on the crossing point, killing 4 Israeli soldiers. Israel has been conducting
with their weekend packet. And we told them that unless there's an emergency, no phone communication. You know, you can use the handheld if you have to. You can use the channel 15 if you have to.
Against the job interview when you go and they say, can you know what each diagram is? Yeah. Do you know what kernel, do you have kernel knowledge? Yes, I do. This would all be a good thing. But what I do want to show you is what I would expect one to use in industry, and that is a simplification program. What I'm going to introduce to you is multi-field.
4 or 5 packs of officers walking onto campus, and right now, give us 1 second here, guys. They're moving us around. Give us 1 second. And so what we saw were packs of officers coming onto 114th and going onto campus, and in the meantime, they have the Harry team with the drones watching over the campus. Their officers manning the streets, telling students to shelter in place. So there are officers at the front of each building ensuring that these students are not coming out. I'm not sure you can hear it, but there are people chanting from their windows and from the front of the building, "Shame on you," to the officers.
For determining precious metal content. Although pyrometallurgical extraction methods have been around much longer than hydrometallurgy, these sciences continue to be advanced at IPMI member companies and universities around the world. At the end of these processes, the result is a pure precious metal, whether it's gold, silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium, or one of the other platinum group metals. The purity expected at the end of these processes is at minimum 395, and for specific purposes, whether banking and trading, alloy, or pharmaceutical manufacture, the purity
rotating armature. That rotating armature means maintaining connection through 360-degree rotation through these split rings. That means we harness the entire alternation of the armature through the magnetic field. So we get that 360-degree waveform out of it.